Just as a songwriter, as somebody who prides themselves on being a songwriter, and that's what I think of first and foremost as a musician. That's what I think of myself. Having a tool to sort of assist in that process is invaluable. And some of my favorite ideas I've ever written have started with a tone that I find on a pedal, or some kind of setting triggered off of a pickup configuration, the way a pedal interacts with that configuration, just fluky things like that. That's where song ideas come from. And so that's what I would hope other guitar players find value in this pedal, is sort of an assistant, so to speak, when it comes to writing, when it comes to finding that creative spark. The Andromeda was awesome. I liked that one when it came out, but there was the Silver Lake. That's the one that I came to time and time again. I would take that one on clinics. I even took it on tour as part of my jam rig backstage, and I would always find myself just writing something. It could be garbage, it could be good, but the point is that I was always writing with it. And then that's where this project really went into high gear, is when I tested out that pedal. I said, wouldn't it be cool if we took some of these reverb kinds of sounds and tweaked them and added some of the features from the Andromeda. What I wasn't expecting was for it to sound like a totally different pedal based off of the routing options that the design team implemented. And that's, changing the routing from a delay into reverb and then a reverb into a delay. You can get it sounding like a completely different pedal, which is awesome. It unlocks a whole new sort of world of tones you can get into. I mean, they sent me the first prototype a while back, and when I got the prototype in the mail, I plugged it in, and already I wrote a couple ideas in just that first sit-down moment, and that's what struck me about the box, because it looks a little feature-intensive. It looks kind of crazy because of all the controls on it, but I knew something special was happening when I started to write with it, because it sounded good out of the box. And then it wasn't until I got here to where I sat down with Riley, the lead designer, and he showed me more stuff than I realized that it was capable of, and that's where it took off. But I mean, I feel like just the days being here at Seymour Duncan, I was kind of writing some ideas without really even trying. It's worth what you paid for it if it starts triggering those kinds of moments, and that's what I chase. That's strictly what I chase with gear. It's like I don't buy gear just to have it. It needs to bring something out of me. It needs to help stir those creative juices. Also, if you were to take a look at any Periphery song, you would notice that almost every song that we have, there's some kind of delay, reverb-soaked sort of ambient line, at least somewhere in the song. And I wanted to be able to capture that in one box. Normally, you'd have to set up a delay and a reverb pedal, two separate boxes, string them up together to find that sound. I never use one without the other. So I wanted that in one box, but I wanted to maintain the sort of the versatility and the flexibility in that box. I wanted the flexibility with two pedals in one. So yeah, I feel from that angle, it was nailed from a design standpoint. Riley was the guy I approached in the first place, just because I knew that's where his head was in the pedal world. And while they were building the Silver Lake, he was the head of that project as well. And he sat me down and we went through that pedal. And yeah, from the very beginning, he's been the point person. Yeah, he's been awesome in sort of bringing my sort of basic desires in a pedal to life.
After that initial conversation, we kind of went to the drawing board. We're looking at, what we might want to do with this and how that was going to work for you. And one of the things that you mentioned that really ended up playing a big role in the development of the pedal was signal routing.
I'd only ever played a delay into a reverb. That's all I've ever sort of experimented with on stage and in the studio, is I just love the sound of a delay into reverb. And I came to you guys with that idea, and I think it was you who mentioned on a phone call or in a meeting or something was, do you ever want to switch up the routing? And I just thought that that would logistically be a pain and not be possible. And I asked, is it simple? And he said, yeah, it's doable. And that became somewhat of a primary feature on the pedal that kind of begs to be experimented with. And I've even found myself liking that signal chain for certain types of delay or depending on the section.
Yeah.
But it's cool, the flexibility is there.
And the high pass filter in particular is one that we tried out with Silver Lake and found to be so useful for reverb that we wanted to include it on this, and that it really works nicely for delay as well.
Yeah.
Obviously low pass filter and the modulation are pretty common things on delay and really nice. And the saturation is something you found useful for cutting through in a denser mix.
The saturation feature on here is something that I wasn't using so much when I had, for instance, just like a clean tone playing by myself. But when I started tracking things where the guitar needs to poke through in the mix, like when you're doing this really drenched, wet reverb delay tone, you need it to sort of poke out, especially if you're playing over metal, which is uncontrolled and chaotic in its own right. Competing with 2 or 3 guitars, a bass, drums, and a singer who screams over everything, you want a pedal to be able to cut properly. So that really helped. If you sort of beef up the saturation a little bit, things can cut through a little easier.